in India, we reached a really exciting point. Electric vehicles is new technology, and the combustion engine is an old technology which will eventually die out. 95% of the new car launches, new bus launches, new truck launches were all electric. There were just a handful of IC engine cars.
How do you see the growth trajectory of entire industry in India?
India has a very strong economic growth for the next 20, 30, 40 years by virtue of its demographic dividend. We want to accelerate the adoption of electric mobility because for the next million EV drivers in the world, charging solutions need to be more affordable. Prices of electric cars are becoming cheaper, the battery packs are becoming bigger, so the range also increases. So I see 2025 is a really exciting year for the Indian electric vehicle market.
Welcome to Goisi Talks. In the episode, we have a very special guest. They are dedicated to Make in India. They're dedicated to build the EV industry more reliable, more affordable, and everywhere. We have Wybren, CEO and co-founder of BrightBlu Electricals. Welcome, Wybren, to the show.
Thank you so much, Navneet, and pleasure having you here in our HQ in our R&D lab in Pune. Very glad having you here.
So I heard that BrightBlu is completely going made in India products, from manufacturing to R&D to service, production, everything.
Yeah.
What made you do that?
And this really also leads back to the genesis of BrightBlu when we started out in 2019 with a core conviction that you have to build the technology and the chargers fully in-house and here in India. Let me take you back a little bit to how I started out my journey here in India. So I came to India in 2014 and I actually was trading chargers from the Netherlands from two different companies, New Motion and Heliox, into India. And I learned a lot. So I was trading AC chargers and DC chargers. I was selling them to vehicle OEMs. I was selling them to charge point operators. So very early days of the charging market and the electric vehicle market here in India. But the key thing that I learned, Navneet, was that in order to be able to service your customers in the best possible way and be able to really answer to the demands that they have, so the demands that the market has, you have to build the technology in-house. That's one. So it's really to own and control the customer value proposition. That's number one. Number two, which is also a very important aspect, is that it's not just about owning the customer value proposition, but it's also about controlling the price. And we control and decide by the very virtue that we own and control the technology, what goes inside the charger. As you know, the Indian market is very price sensitive, so you have to be able to control the price. If you're dependent on either importing chargers from another country, or you're importing a lot of these components and putting it together here in India, you're very dependent on, the exchange rates. You're dependent on import duties. So your charger will be a lot more costly. So for us, and there's a third aspect to it, is if you own and control the technology, the servicing becomes much better. We know what goes into our charger. We know what if a component is.
There's an end-to-end understanding of the product.
Exactly. We have an end-to-end understanding of the products. And really I think that was the start of BrightBlu. In 2019, we set up BrightBlu, and we means four co-founders, myself and Yash Chitalia, Saket Anandakrishnan, and Santosh Ram Somasundaram. We together set up BrightBlu with this core conviction that you have to build chargers here in India. That was number one. So it serves to service our chargers for the Indian market. But we had a second conviction. And the second conviction is that if we build chargers here in India and we leverage the talent, the technological talent that's available here, and because it's available, it's also much more affordable compared to companies that are developing, making in Europe or making in the US. And secondly, for manufacturing here, the labor costs are much more affordable.
In India?
Yeah, in India. So we also, and that's the ultimate goal with BrightBlu, is that we build a global charging solutions company out of India because we have a much lower cost base. Comparative and relative to our peers that are sitting in Europe, the US, or any other Western nation.
So you mean your products are worldwide? You're planning to go out to the world?
Absolutely, because the whole point is that we make European quality, but at a much more affordable price.
So you will be serving the same products in India also? Is there a different quality?
No, the same quality, exactly the same quality that we make here. And that's really why customers really appreciate us so much. Charge point operators like yourself, like GoEC, is that we make European quality, but we make it at an Indian price point, right? And the Indian buyer, in any market, ultimately is a value buyer.
Yeah.
They want a good product, and they're willing to pay a little premium, but not too much, right? So a European product, if you import it, the quality is good, but the price is way too high. Many products say that are imported from China, or companies that that do full system integrations, that are importing and that are putting it together here. Unfortunately, they might be cost competitive, but oftentimes the quality and the service is lacking. So exactly. So what we supply is the right quality, but at the right price point.
So from the customer feedbacks and from a little research, I know that BrightBlu is using some advanced technology in terms of managing the power supply inside the charging machine.
Yeah.
Can you explain a little bit of that?
Yeah, of course. So this is a really important feature that we supply with the charger, which is called the BrightBlu Power Manager. And it is able to dynamically manage the power output of the charger.
Okay.
So what it does really is the charger communicates with the BrightBlu Power Manager. And what the BrightBlu Power Manager communicates is really the available load in real time that you have on a household connection or any building connection, so that you never overload your available capacity. So it prevents your switches from tripping, and it's there for safety. So it's a very important feature. And how did we develop this, and why did we develop this? This again boils back to the European DNA that we also have within our company. We have shareholders from there, and they, when we started out with the company, really advised us. They said, okay, if you want to succeed, not just in the Indian market, but in global markets, dynamic power management is a feature that we need to incorporate.
So the point of view is always global market.
The point of view is always that we want to, for the Indian market, provide the best possible quality. And obviously, indeed, the longer term, the long-term vision is really to be able to serve the global markets.
Correct.
Right? Because we have a definite cost advantage here. And that's also the way we want to accelerate the adoption of electric mobility. Because for the next million EV drivers in the world, charging solutions need to be more affordable.
Yes.
So we really try to accelerate the adoption of electric vehicles, not just in India, but globally, by also bringing prices of charging solutions down.
So you mentioned that you started in the industry in 2014 or 15, something like that, right?
Correct. Yeah.
How do you see the growth trajectory of the entire industry in India as it stands?
Yeah. So I think in India, we reached a really exciting point. And what I mean with that is the following. The industry has been growing. Obviously, I think the real inception was even before 2014. There were already some cars like the Mahindra Reva and Mahindra E2O. Before it was just Reva, before it was acquired by Mahindra. So there were some.
But you've always been sure about the growth?
I've always, since I entered into the industry, which was in 2014, and I started driving a Nissan Leaf, and I test drove one of the first Tesla Model S's that came to Europe.
Okay.
Once I drove those vehicles, I was hooked. I realized that electric vehicles is new technology, and the combustion engine is an old technology which will eventually die out.
Okay.
Simply, electric cars are simply better products. Obviously, the big challenge over the last decade has been to really get to cost price parity, and that's where we're getting. And that comes back to your, now I'm coming back to your original question, where do you feel that the Indian market stands? The Indian market, we've reached a really exciting point. I think one of the real, for me this year was a signifier in terms of the growth was the Vaart Global Mobility Expo that was held in New Delhi. 95% of the new car launches, new bus launches, new truck launches were all electric. There were just a handful of IC engine cars. That's number one. Number two, if you look at the global battery prices, they are dropping faster than people can comprehend and can imagine. As a result, the prices of electric cars are becoming cheaper. The battery packs are becoming bigger, so the range also increases. So I see 2025 is a really exciting year for the Indian electric vehicle market.
Let's say, but the market is growing. Exactly, it's growing. Yeah, we can see the numbers. We can see the new cars that are coming up.
Yeah.
The entire Indian market, Indian OEMs is ready to punch the industry with new cars and all.
Yeah.
But there are safety concerns. There are definite safety concerns. How do BrightBlu address those safety concerns on the charging stations and or charging machines?
Yeah.
And what do you think that we can improve in that level?
Yeah. So when it comes to, I'll start with ourselves, with BrightBlu. We obviously adhere to all the global as well as local Indian standards for safety norms for chargers and charging stations. Our chargers have been fully CE certified by TUV North. So these are independent test labs that have certified our chargers, as well as obviously the Automotive Research Association of India, ARAI. So our chargers comply to all the local as well as global safety norms for electric vehicles. If you then pull it a little broader, I think when it comes to safety, in fact, electric vehicles are a lot safer than IC engines. If you literally take IC engine, internal combustion, there is a combustion happening inside. Where there is flammable liquids that's in there. If you look at the hard statistics, normal cars or IC engine cars have caught a lot more fires than electric vehicles per se. So these are the hard statistics. So electric vehicles, in fact, are safer than IC engine vehicles.
What do you think that the industry demands in terms of giving giving electric vehicle access to the rural India areas?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I would say, obviously, the metros and the higher customer segments are the first ones to adopt. I think, obviously, electricity provision in more rural areas in India can be a challenge. Having said that, electric vehicles can also be part of the solution for that.
Okay.
That's very interesting, because an electric vehicle actually, in essence, is nothing more than a very large mobile energy storage.
Yes.
And that's the interesting thing. So if, for example, you have intermittent electricity or you have grid issues, what you can do is you can use your electric car or your electric vehicle as a storage device. You can draw power from it, which we call vehicle to home or vehicle to grid, and power your house, power your building. So in effect, electric vehicles form a part of the solution of the energy system of tomorrow. And by giving reliable energy, balancing the grid, and that's again where BrightBlu will also play a crucial role, because the charger no longer is just a point that sends energy from from the grid or the electricity from your building to the car, but it will also take energy from the car and send it back to the grid, or it will send it to your house to power your house.
So it's become a medium.
It will become a medium, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And that's so it's part of the solution and it's not a problem.
BrightBlu is in the industry for a while, and I'm sure that there'll be a lot of customer feedbacks. So how does this customer feedback shape the product further and further, and how do you see this is growing into probably where you dreamed where the product should be?
And that's the beauty of having developed and owning and controlling the technology. Because if we get customer feedback that they want to add a feature or they want to subtract 2 features to make the charger more affordable for their end users, then we can do it. So I think one really unique solution, for example, that we've come up with is that charge point operators ask for power backup.
Okay.
And you have a very simple option of putting lithium-ion battery cells into your charger. But these lithium-ion battery cells have drawbacks as well, because it gets very hot in India. Your charge can be, in temperatures 50 plus degrees Celsius. Inside the charger it gets even hotter. It is a real danger. It can lead to thermal runaway events whereby the battery will catch fire. Ultimately, if batteries aren't used, they also degrade. They empty out. And then it has to be serviced. Your charger has to be opened up. And again, you expose the charger to dust, to the elements, etc. So what we have done, instead of using a battery, we use supercapacitors that will give power backup for 3 minutes in order to be able to, when there is a power cut, that the charger, the critical systems of the charger remain powered, and that the message to the CPO, exactly, the system can be relayed that there's a power cut, what the transaction data are, and that the charging session, once the power comes back, can be automatically resumed. So this is a very unique feature that, as far as I know, no one else in the Indian market offers, which we fully designed in-house based on customer feedback.
Fully designed in-house?
Yeah, fully designed in-house. So it's all fully designed in-house.
So that I can see that, there is a product and there's a feedback from the customers that this should be done, and the company is reactive to that and coming up with a better technology that compatible with the modern problems.
Exactly.
And you mentioned something about the weather in India, so that's I was coming to exactly there. You see, you go to Kashmir, you go to Delhi, you see -3, -4 at one point of time.
Yeah.
And you flip it, then you see 50 degrees.
Yeah.
So the extreme weather changes
Yeah.
with a technology that's so vulnerable in that terms.
Yeah.
What is the challenge? Where do you see it?
Yeah. Yeah, I think what we've done right from the outside, we realize that, right? Because India is a super diverse country.
Yeah.
Indeed, from on the one hand side, you've got the Himalayas, you've got extreme cold, you've got tropical temperatures in Kerala and down south, where it's also really humid. On the other hand side, you have in the cities where unfortunately, and we're all working on that with electric mobility, but it's really polluted. So, and these pollutants are very, very small, very fine. They will also penetrate,
Into the system.
devices. Exactly, but they will not penetrate into our system because we, from the outset, designed the enclosure to be IP65 rated.
IP65.
IP65 rated.
Dust and water, or they will do it dust?
Yeah, exactly. So it is the maximum protection against dust.
Okay.
And water can, it can withstand normal showers, thunder showers, etc., and without any problems. And again, this is not self-certified. This rating has been given by TUV Nord with our CE certification and by ARAI in our Indian certifications.
Okay.
So it's not self-certified. It's fully independently certified by 2 different test labs, both in Europe as well as here.
How did the dream started of BrightBlu?
Yeah, so it's a very good question. Like I said, when I was, and this we would have to, go back quite a bit in history, more than 10 years, I was actually still studying at the University of Amsterdam.
Okay.
And I was having a job on the side with a consulting firm, and they were specialized in electric mobility consulting. And the interesting thing was that when I, first started working with them, I immediately thought to myself, this is something very interesting for India. Mm-hmm. And why did I think?
What made you think?
I had a background. I basically, between my high school and my university, I did a gap year. I taught English as a volunteer in Sri Lanka.
Okay.
And then during my studies, and I got really fascinated with the culture of the subcontinent. Mm-hmm. So during my studies, I traveled around in India a fair bit. I did one more stint of volunteering in a very small village, which on the border of Tamil Nadu and Kerala.
Okay.
And where I taught English to first-time learners from tribal families.
Okay.
So I had a connect with India. So that's really when I started in the field of electric mobility. I thought to myself, this is interesting for India. There was a deeper thesis that I started developing at the time. This is around 2012, 2013. When I said to myself, or I didn't say to myself, but it was really clear that India has it will have very strong economic growth for the next 20, 30, 40 years by virtue of its demographic dividend, right? So 26 is the median age in India. All these people are going to come into an age when they want to produce, want to consume. There's going to be very high demand for energy to power that economic growth. And as a result, also, the demand for mobility will also rise a lot. So the demand for mobility in general, people want to buy more cars, more scooters.
Yes.
We see that on our roads.
We see that in the road.
So, and the fourth one is that with these 3 things, also the urbanization rates are very high. So I thought to myself, if you fill that in the old manner with, IC engine cars, with coal-fired power plants, you're going to add a tremendous amount of emissions to the world, and we already have problems with climate change. We have problems with polluted air and cities. On the other hand side, if you fill that in with electric mobility, with renewable energy, what do? You don't just mitigate the problems in India, but if you produce these things in India, you're going to have a multiplier effect on the world.
Okay.
Because you make the prices cheaper by virtue of the economies of scale, by the fact that you produce in India where the labor costs are more affordable. So that is really what the thesis of BrightBlu is built on. We want to make an impact in India and globally by accelerating the adoption of electric vehicles, by making charging reliable, affordable, and easy. And we do that by manufacturing here in India, supplying it to the Indian market, being able to catalyze the growth in the Indian market as well as global markets. That's really what the twin pillars of BrightBlu are.
What I can gather from your conversation is that BrightBlu is not just a company, probably something like import some machines and white label it and sell.
Yes.
It's not a company like that.
Not
it is a company that built from a vision.
Yeah.
Built from a long-term vision where you see the growth, you see where the industry is growing, you see where the economy is growing, you see where the customers are growing.
Yeah.
But my question is that, or my confusion is that, why is the fast charging customers are not able to afford BrightBlu.
Yeah. So you're saying basically, why do we only have AC charging solution
Exactly.
products? Yeah. So that's also, there's a very logical answer to that. Is that when we started out 5 years back, we had to focus on one thing because we believe in focus, in doing one thing extremely well and becoming really good at it, and then moving on to the next thing. If we would have said, okay, we're going to focus on AC as well as DC at the same time, we probably would not have come up with a good product for either of these two categories. So we said, okay, we need to focus on one thing, do it extremely well, and then we can move on to the next segment.
Okay.
And that's what we're doing as well. We will work with partners to also bring DC charging solutions and to the market here. That's number one. And number two, I think really we've shown in the AC charging market that we provide a very, very good product today. And I'm very proud to say that we serve all the 5 largest CPOs in India. We were very, very happy to serve you as the main charge point operator in God's own countries, GoEC. So we're very proud of these facts. So that's the road ahead for DC is there, and we're keen to also to supply these, and we will. So that's really what it's about.
So we are in an era where AI technology, softwares are controlling everything. What do you think the probable risks that charging stations are at when it comes to cybersecurity, and how do you plan to tackle that?
Yeah, no, it's a really, really good question, and it shows a lot of insights as well. I think there are a few different things here, but the key thing for us as a charging solutions manufacturer is that we have written the entire technology stack, including the firmware and the OCPP, the Open Charge Point Protocol software stack.
Okay.
We've developed that fully in-house.
Okay.
So we connect to charge point operators like yourself who have their software backend connecting to our charger. Now, today we operate on OCPP 1.6J, but we're moving to OCPP 2.0, which has a lot of extra safety features and cybersecurity protection inbuilt. Because it is very much critical question. I think the industry is relatively young, but as it matures, it will have to focus on bringing these controls against, cybersecurity attacks.
Exactly.
So for sure, it's a very important point.
So it's been around 10 years in India dealing with the industry, and I think it's been the 5th year or 6th year of BrightBlu. How do you see the government approaching the industry from the early days to how that changed during time and how that brought a meaningful change in the industry?
What I've seen in the government approach is that initially there was a very broad-based plan, the National Electric Mobility Mission Plan, that really looked to push electric mobility as a whole, but it was very broad-based. And what you see now is that the government has gone through multiple cycles and iterations of developing and implementing e-mobility policies. And I think they're also learning more and more about what works and doesn't work. So it's in effect, it's no other than, building a company or running a business, is that you learn, you go with what works, you leave what doesn't work. So they're also moving forward and implementing the lessons that have worked and leaving what hasn't worked and moving ahead to push e-mobility as a whole in India.
So someone who has seen the evolution of Indian EV industry for such long time, I need an advice from you. So what is your advice to charging point operators like GoEC? And what would be your advice to young car buyers?
So let me start first with the advice for charge point operators. I think it's really important that you have a long-term vision, what you want to build and the value that you want to create for your customers. So the car drivers, really the electric vehicle drivers. So you need to be very clear about what you're building and what value you're providing. So and have that long-term vision, because Rome, as they say, wasn't built overnight. It took many years. So same way we're working with atoms and things in the real physical space. This is not built like a piece of software overnight and where you can iterate quickly. So you have to have a long-term vision and execute on that and stay true to that vision of what you're building. So that's number one. Number two, what I would advise is that focus on quality. The quality of your services, the quality of your charging stations where you install the chargers, it needs to be top-notch. It needs to be in quality locations, because people ultimately will always go with quality. Price is not the only thing, but quality is what lasts and what will build long-term value for your customer and therefore for you if you build a company. So that's what I would advise charge point operators and anyone that is active in this industry for a fact. So that's one. Number two, what would I advise young car buyers is that the market now has a whole range of options.
We're spoiled by options.
Exactly. We're spoiled by options, and that's only going to increase.
Yes.
So I would say focus on a good car that's in your budget and go electric, because there is no such thing as driving electric. It's more comfortable, it is more enjoyable, and ultimately it is cheaper as well. Your total cost of ownership is much lower. Even though, your sticker price may still be a little bit more expensive, but we're already approaching that inflection point where it's going to reach cost price parity, but your electricity is cheaper than your fuel. Your maintenance costs, because there are less moving parts in the electric car, are much lower. And ultimately the residual value, and that's proven by markets in Europe, in the US and other developed markets, the residual value is much better. Today, if you buy a diesel car or a petrol car in 5 years' time, no one will buy that anymore from you because everything is moving electric. So today, any new car buyer, I would say, go electric.
When we talk about electric car industry, the word sustainability will always appear. What are the initiatives, or what is the points that you always keep in mind when you work in the charging machine industry in terms of sustainability?
Yeah. So I would like to just approach this question first of all from a slightly broader perspective. Sustainability is really important, but ultimately you can never forget that you have to build a product and deliver a product that is better than what is the status quo. So it's nice that electric cars are more sustainable and that they're better for the environment, but if they were worse product than an IC engine vehicle, people will not part with their hard-earned money. So number one for us is always product and how that product functions. You need to build a better product, full stop. And how does that translate into so that's what goes for the car, but it also goes for the chargers. And by and large, we focus that in the following ways, is that charging your car at home overnight is simply much more convenient, easy, than going out to a petrol bunk and filling up your petrol car with diesel or with petrol, right? So plugging in overnight, which just takes 1 minute, you come home, you park your car, you plug it in, you leave it, next morning your battery pack is full. That is the most sustainable way of charging and of driving a vehicle for that matter.
What are the kind of policy changes that you think would help the growth further in the industry?
Yeah. So my view is that the government has to be as much hands-off as possible. Because ultimately the markets will really decide what works well, what doesn't work well, and vote with their feet and with their wallets. So I'm not in favor of the government, enacting, strict policies on in terms of what kind of charges or pricing, because it doesn't help. The market will vote, people will vote with their wallets, and the best solutions at the best price point, best quality will ultimately be what lasts. So that's number one. Number two, I do have another different view when it comes to, overall sustainability and promoting electric mobility or promoting clean modes of transportation versus non-clean modes of transportation. And I'm very much simply in favor of letting the polluter pay. So let the taxes and levies on IC engine vehicles, on petrol vehicles be higher than on electric cars, simply because they pollute more. It's an externality that is today not priced into our economic model, but it should be, because people buy a car, they pollute the air, everyone pollutes the air, and we ultimately end up paying the bills for that. With our health, with people who go, have to go to hospital because they've got issues with their lungs. So I'm in favor of letting the polluter pay. Because really pay, and then people will again vote with their wallets and they'll go for the cleaner alternatives.
That is important, I guess.
Yeah.
So Wybren, it was very nice to talk to you. And I guess we had discussed the industry and we had discussed the company, we had discussed the journey of you, how it started, how it's going on. And I hope that you are very optimistic about the growth of the industry in India and where it's going in the way. Do you think that we can kind of reach the 30% of market share of electric vehicles by 2030?
In fact, I think it's going to be much more. So I'm
more.
super optimistic, and but that optimism is rooted in reality. Why? Because like I said, electric vehicles are better products. They're reaching cost price parity soon. Once an electric car, a comparable electric car, is the same price as an IC engine vehicle, people will en masse start shifting to electric vehicles, for the very simple reason that no one's going to pay more for your petrol or your maintenance, your long-term ownership of a petrol or diesel car that they can't sell anymore. So I think the percentage of electric vehicles and new vehicle sales in the Indian market will be a lot higher than 30%.
What about the commercial and fleet industry?
Yeah, same. So in the commercial and fleet industry, every rupee counts. And what is the most important is that basically that the total cost of ownership of a vehicle should be lower than of an IC engine vehicle. And we're approaching there as well. When you look at the European markets, trucks, buses, and here in India as well, by the way, the bus market is growing exponentially. And that simply comes on the back of a cheaper operating cost. And as an operator, you can make more money employing electric vehicles rather than your IC vehicles. Exactly. Yeah.
I have heard that Tesla is coming to India. The company is already started hiring in India.
Yeah.
And I guess in the coming months, we will see the brand Tesla in India. What is your take?
Yeah. So I sincerely hope so. In fact, I've been hoping that they would enter for the last 10 years, and unfortunately, it hasn't happened yet. I think the products that they make are, in terms of features, the quality are on another level. Yet they're able to do that at a price point which is very compelling. And I think if they enter, they will do incredibly well in the Indian market, and it will catalyze the e-mobility market even further. So I sincerely hope that they enter as soon as possible, and that it will further lead to the growth and the acceleration of the electric vehicle market in India.
How do you see Goeasy is growing? Because you have been associating with us for some time.
Yeah.
How do you see Goeasy is growing, and what is your experience with us?
Yeah. So my experience with Goeasy is extremely good. I think we've been associated for over 2 years.
Yes.
You're a very important client to us, and we're very keen on fostering, with you the e-mobility ecosystem, not just in Kerala but in other parts of India as well. And I see a very strong growth in the future for Goeasy, and we're very keen and happy to support that growth.
Thank you, Wybren. Thank you for the nice conversation.